Kakadosh Boker or Masechet Sanhedrin Daf Yomi Daf Samechta Amud Aleph 69a1. Says the Gemara, Ve'amar Achmana, the pasuk comes and it says, Ish atat tzarich. What does it mean? Ish atat tzarich lachzor elav im yesh lo goalin. Only a man you have to check, does he have yoshim or not? Im lav, and if not, right, you have to find out. But a katan, you don't have to look into it. Why? Because you already know that a katan cannot have goalin. Why does a katan not have goalin? Because obviously a katan cannot have a child. So if he's a ger and he's a katan, there's nothing more to check. You know that he doesn't have any children. So that's a proof to what the Rabbi is coming and he's saying, because the Rabbi just said that a child cannot have a child, right? A child cannot have a child, right? Mind the panamort. Okay, 8 Abai. So Abai is going to ask a question. 100%. But if the child dies, there's no, and this is a ger, so there's no family, there's no goalin. Why is there no goel? Because you know that the person cannot have a child. Okay, so 8 Abai comes and he asks one question. Ve'ish en li ela ish. He says this is only going to be an ish. Ben tesha shanim v'yom echad ra'oi lebiyah minayin. How do we know? Right, that basically was it says over there. So he says, how do you know that in the case of an ish that's going to go on a shivcha charufa, but if it's a katan which is going to be 9 years old and which is already going to be ra'ui lebiyah, how do you know that it's also noheg this halachat? What does that mean? When it says the ve'ish, the vav of the ve'ish, it's coming to include a teisha shanim v'yom echad. So therefore, when the pasuk says ve'ish ki yishkav et isha shichvat zera, it's coming to teach you that even a teisha shanim v'yom echad, he does have shichvat zera. Okay, so zera though is mashma that he could have a child. What is zera? Zera is a seed, right? Zera is something that you're zoreah and it's going to sprout forth. Yeah. So if it's like that, so therefore you could still have a child. So says the Gemara, right, as follows. So says the Gemara, Elmaleh, he says, no, yeshlo. He does have zera. Meaning from 9 years old onwards, the child has zera. But eno molid. But he does not have children. Ki tivua shelo v'yeshlishami, because it's like a tivua that didn't bring a third. So since it didn't bring a third, right, it's not going to be good. Deve Chizkiya Tana, right, in the academy of Chizkiya they taught, V'chi yazid ish al re'ehu leorgo be'orma. Ish is mezid umazriya, ve'en katan mezid umazriya. So here it says that when it says v'chi yazid ish al re'ehu leorgo be'orma, right? This is mamash. This is yesterday's parasha, yeah. So when it says over there that when you're going to have somebody that's going to come bechavana, right? But there it's yazid ish is bechavana to kill. So he says over here ish is going to be mezid, is going to be vashel lazera, and he's going to be mazriya. Ve'ena katan mazriya. What does that mean? So therefore, his zera is not bashel. It's not bushal. It's not proper to come and to do any children. Meaning that he could have zera, but it doesn't produce. It doesn't reproduce. How do you know that mezid there means bishul? That means like it's cooked enough, right? And it's ripened enough in order to come. So he says, Dichtiv, it says in the pasuk, Vayazed Yaakov Nazid. What does that mean? Exactly. So he says, Vayazed Yaakov Nazid means that you're going to come, you're going to cook it. So it says the Gemara, V'hatana V'ishmael ben velo av. He says, 1 second, but I thought Tana V'ishmael taught ben velo av. It means dafka the ben and not the av, meaning ben sod and morer and not the father. So it says the Gemara, Hey Chidami, what's the case? Ile madia barbatar de aites shte sarot. If you're going to tell me that the woman became pregnant after he had the 2 sarot, ve'olid, and she gave birth, right, mikame de lakiv zakan, beforehand, mika sheut kolai, is there such a long time? Meaning, how could it be that he had relations, she becomes pregnant, she conceives, but she gives birth, and he still doesn't have the shte sarot? It doesn't make sense. I'm saying, how does that work exactly? You understand? That means if he has shte sarot, it does not take 9 months from 2 hairs until that the bottom part becomes full. All the days are the ben sorer u'morer. It's only 3 months. It's 3 months. From 13 to 3 months. That's all that it is. So therefore, what are you talking about? So what, she gave birth within 3 months? So but rather, she became pregnant before he had the 2 pubic hairs, and then she gave birth before he had the zakan full, but it's only after the 2 sarot. Before, so he says shemamina katan molid. So there's a proof that a katan can be molid, right? So basically, again, whenever we're asking, it is a question that we're saying that no, a katan could have a child. So answers the Gemara, no. Leolam diabar batar da'it shte sarot. Really, be'emet, she became pregnant after the 2 sarot. Ve'olid batar da'akiv zakan, and she gave birth right? I mean, she conceived after the two pubic hairs, but she gave birth after the zakan tachton was full. Kakasha de Rabbi Kuspadai. You had the question of Rabbi Kuspadai that it says it's only going to be 3 months. When he said like this, Amri b'marav, they said in Israel, ben velo ra'ui likroto av. When it says ben, or that it's going to be a ben sorer moren, it's not that he's fitting to be called a father, an abba, right? A father. So therefore he says anybody that passed 3 months after bringing two pubic hairs, it could be that she already became pregnant immediately from the two pubic hairs. So after the 3 months, it's already nikaru bara, and therefore he's already fitting to be called an abba. So it comes out that adraba, the brighta is nishne b'ben midrasho shel Bishmael, is a mekor to the din of Rabbi Kuspadai. Yeah. By the way, what does this show you? What does this Gemara show you? That a father is called a father when his wife is already pregnant, even before giving birth. You understand what I just said? The Gemara Masechet Megillah Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph comes and says as follows. Yeah, it says Uvmot avia v'ima. What does it mean? Ki en la av va'em. Uvmot avia v'ima lamali. So why do I have it? Amar Rav Chia ibarta. When the mother became pregnant, metavia. Her father died. Meaning she conceived, the father passed away. Yeladata, so en av. Yelata meta ima. Then the mother died. Now the question is, why do you say that? Maybe the father died in a car accident, the exact same moment, or a day before, or the same time that she gave birth. So says Rashi, Besha shenit abra ima metavia nimsa shelo haya la'av nisha shenir'e likarot av. Wow. She didn't have a father when he's fitting to be called a father. But when was that? When she became pregnant.
For 3 months.
Right? So he says, Ushieladata ima meta velo niret likrot em. It comes out that a mother is not called a mother until she gives birth. Huh? No, Rachel was called a mother.
Yeah, but she meta.
Nachon, but she already gave birth. She gave birth and then she died. She died during the childbirth. Right? But she was already a mother because of Yosef. Here what we're saying is Rashi is coming and telling you an incredible yesod. A woman is not called a mother until she gives birth. A father is called the father the second the woman becomes conceived. From conceived. Even though here our Gemara is telling us the same yesod, but it has to be ukaru bara. Because that's when you know that she's pregnant. So ukaru bara means 3 months. But it's still during the pregnancy. Meaning right now, the mother, Mazal Tov, dad. What dad? She didn't give birth yet. You're a dad. You're already a father. And that's what you just see from our Gemara. Because our Gemara is saying that why is it Dafka 3 months? Saying Dafka 3 months because obviously what happened was that she conceived during the pubic hairs, the two pubic hairs, but then it had to be until Zakaf Tachton. If it's going to be after 3 months, so then it's already an Abba. So therefore it cannot be an Abba. You understood? There's the Gemara Gufa. It says, Amar Rabbi Kispadai, Amar Rabbi Shabtai, Kol Yamav Shel Ben Soder Morin Lo Shlosha Chodashim Milvad. It's only going to be 3 months. Says the Gemara, Ve'ad Antran, we learned, Mishavishte Sarovat Sheikaf Yakiv Azakan. So he says, Yikif Azakan, Afagavdu Lo Malu Shlosha Chodashim, Malu Shloshim, Afagavdu Lo Yikif. So says the Gemara, you're right. When it says that it's going to be from the two pubic hairs until the entire Zakav and the Tachton is going to be, how do you call this? It's going to be the entire bottom part. It's either or. Meaning, either it's going to be Kifa Zakan, even though it's not 3 months, or it's going to be 3 months, even though it's not Kifa Zakan. Meaning that every single child has different puberty, how do you call it? Like a different puberty, how do you call this? Like, stages, exactly. Like how they ripen, how they become mature. You understand? So therefore, he's saying it's either or. It's either going to be 3 months, even though it didn't finish the process of kif zakana tachton, or it's going to be ikif zakana tachton, even though it did not pass the 3 months. That means, let's say this child comes very, very quick. So he has 2 pubic hairs, and immediately, boom, he flies, and then after 2.5 months, he's already full. He's already, that's it. He can't be a servant or a Why? It's either or, meaning either of the 2 stages is already enough. So the Yativ Rabbi Yaakov Minahar Pekod Kamed Ravina is sitting Rabbi Yaakov Nahar Pekod in front of Ravina. Yativ V'Kamar Mishmeni come and he says the name of Ravuna Ben Rav Yoshua Shema Mina. We learn from here. We learn from here. Yoled Leshiva Enu Bara Nikar Leshlisha Mea. If a woman is going to come and she's going to give birth at 7 months, so the ubara is not going to be nikar the shlisha mea, which means after the shlisha yonah, which is after 2 1/3 months, it's not going to be nikar, but only after 3 months. Meaning, even though she's giving birth early at 7 months, I thought ukaru bara is a third, correct? So ukaru bara is a third. So 3 months pregnancy, 3 months out of 9. That's ukaru bara, that you could tell that she's pregnant. So let's say she's going to give birth at 7 months. Let's say I'm a Navi. I know she's going to give birth at 7 months. So now I'm going to ask you a question. Does she now hukaru bara at 2 months and a third?
No.
Because you do keilu, it's basically a third. A third? So says the Gemara, no, it's going to be a third, which is 3 months. The East, now if you're going to tell me, why do you need 3 months in order to be called a father? Maybe it's going to be 2 1/3. Meaning, we just said that what is the time frame of Ben Sorah Umureh? We said that the time frame Ben Sorah 3 months. Why? Because 3 months is when he's going to be nikar, that now this is a father. And he's already called a father during pregnancy. Says the Gemara, why isn't it enough 2 1/3? So Elmaleh, he comes and he answers him, no, really, Be'emet, yes. But Zil Bataruba, you go after the majority. Meaning the majority of women, when do they give birth? At 7 months or 9? 9. So therefore you go after the majority. You're right, if a woman gives birth at 7 months, it could be that it is nikah already by 2 months and a third, but it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter for us. So Amrua Kamed Rav Huna bered of Yoshua. So they said this in front of Rav Huna of Yoshua. Amarlo, when he comes and he says, Udine nefashot miazlina bataruba. So he says, by dine nefashot, do we go after rov? Right? The Torah says, V'shafetu eda v'tzilo eda. V'atamar tazi bataruba. He said, I don't understand you. Here, we don't go after rov in order to kill, correct? Here, you're going after rov. Why? Because you're telling me what happens if right now he's already 13 and 2 1/2 months, meaning he passed the 2 1/3 months. Maybe the girl is pregnant. Now, if the girl is going to be pregnant, so maybe what's going to happen is that he's already fitting to become a father. And it says, Ben velo ish, ben velo mi shera'ui likarot abba. So if it's going to be like that, what are you going to tell me? You go after rov? What do I care about rov? You don't go after rov. To do with killing, you don't go after rov. So I should say, maybe Bemet is going to be saved. And therefore you come, no, 2 1/3. Why? Because it could be that if he's going to go with right, that's it. It's not going to go with 3 months. So Adrua Kamed Ravina Amalu, we went and he said, Uvdine nefashot lo azina bataru. We don't go after rov. Fatram, we learned in the Mishnah. Echad omer b'shnayim bechodesh, ve'echad omer b'shlosha bechodesh. What happens if you have two people come to Bedin? One of them says this guy comes, it was the second day of the month. The other one says third day of the month. So what happens? Edutan kayemet. You remember we said it is going to be okay. Right? Why? Because the person can make a mistake. One of them knows that it was already Rosh Chodesh, one of them didn't know. He said, now if you're going to tell me now, that we don't go after the rov, why don't I just say that these guys are contradicting each other? And therefore that's it. Right? So he says, Elala mishum damrin zabat bataruba, but we go after the rov. And the majority of people could make a mistake like that. Meaning we do go in dinen fashot berov. Why? Because if a person made a mistake on the second day of the month or the third day of the month, we say it could be a glala mistake. How many times does it happen? You look, it's the third. No, because I forgot it was the 31 day, 30 day. You even in the English state, you forget. You make a mistake, especially when it comes to February, right? Yeah, so a person can make a mistake, right? And therefore he's not really sure. So therefore you're going after the rov because you're going after the rov that it's common that you can make such a mistake. But why are you going after the rov? Just say there's contradictory testimony between the second and the third day of the month, and it's contradictory. Gamum, you throw it out of the case because this is one of the chakirot, not the bedikot. So Amar Rabbi Yomi Daf, says Rabbi Yomi Daf, Afananami Tanina. We also have another proof that we go after rov bedin nefashot, where it says bat shalosh shanim v'yom echad. When you have a case of 3 years and 1 day. So remember, when you have a girl that she's already 3 years old in 1 day, mitkadeshet bebiyah.
Wow.
Yeah, number one, she's going to be mitkadeshet bebiyah, which means that if somebody has, right, if the father gave her over for kiddushin, right, with relations, gamarnu, that's it. She's married. Vimbale yavam, if the yavam has relations with her, boom, kana, he acquires her. V'chayvim alea mishum eshetish, right? And they're going to be chayav v'shumeshet ish, right? Also, because she's a married woman. U'mitamead bo'ala, right? Let's say she becomes a nida. That's it. She's going to be mitamead nida. Remember, this is from 3 years old and onwards, right?
One day.
Right? Yeah, 3 years old and 1 day onwards, anytime, whatever when it is, right? L'tamiyam mishkav tachton, right? L'kelyon. Number 5, nisel lekohen ve'ochel b'turma. She could get married to a kohen, right? If the father gives over, and what? And also, right? She's going to be eating truma. Number 6, ba le'acha min psulin. Psula min kiuna. What happens to somebody that's pasul, halal, whatever? They have relations with her. Boom, she's psula from the kiuna. If right now she has relations with other people that are arayot, they're going to be killed for her. Obviously she's ptura, but she's still a minor, right? 69b, right? Says the Gemara, now in all these cases, why is it? Ema Ailoniti. Maybe she's an Ailonit. So he never wanted to get married to her like that. Right? Remember, an Ailonit, in all these cases, it's not Chal. Because an Ailonit, right, is a Mekach Taut. It doesn't say. So a Yavam that goes to the Ayah, it's nothing. A person that gets married to an Ailonit, it's nothing. It's a null. All these. So why don't we suspect that this girl is an Ailonit? So says the Gemara, Elalav, but rather, Azin Mataruba, we go after Rov. Virov Nashim, the majority of women are not Ailonit. So the majority of women are not Ailonit. You're not going to do anything. But it's not Ailonit. So answers the Gemara, no. Yeah, my chayav aleh diktani. What does it mean chayav aleh? Chayav aleh korban. When we come and we say over here that he's going to be chayav mishum eshatish, we didn't mean that we were going to kill them because of eshatish. They're going to be chayav korban chatat if he had relations with her b'shogeg, right? Because we're going to go after the rov. That yes, to be mechayav korban, we go after, but not to do with nefashot. Meaning we're not going to kill somebody because of that. So says the Gemara, what are you talking about? We learned mumatim al yadam, mumatim al yadam. We kill them. Now how are you going to kill them exactly? So answers the Gemara, beba'alea avia, right? Beba'alea avia. So what does it mean, ba'alea avia? Ba'alea avia means that you're going to come and the father, right? It's not from nisuin, it's from kurva. So therefore, even if it's going to be a kurva, it's still going to be okay. So says the Gemara, v'haim ba'alea echa mikol yoktani. What are you talking about? The father, right? What are we talking about? Yes.
And come back at 9?
Yes. Yeah. So what does it mean now, right? That a person that is talking about the father, right? We're not talking about the father. We're talking about echad mikol harayot. It's lavdavka just the father. Because if it's a father, we don't care about anything else. The father is a father, even if it's an Ailanit, because it doesn't matter, right? If the father goes with a daughter, we don't care if it's an Ailanit or not. He gets killed. You understand? But here, we're talking about over here, echad mikol harayot. So it says the Gemara, what are we dealing with? Tekabla ilaveh. What does that mean? He was mikabel to get married to her, even if she's an Ailonit.
Wow.
So therefore, since he was mikabel al atzmo to get married to her, even if she's an Ailonit, so therefore that's why it's going to be good, and therefore they're going to be killed because we're not going after the rov. Meaning we're not going after the rov because even if she's an Ailonit, it's still good kiddushin. So if it's good kiddushin, that's why he gets killed. Okay, fine. Tanu Rabbi, we learned to the Braita. Hamsolele bivna katan. Right? What happens right now if a woman comes and she puts her erva, right, to an ervat benah katan, ve'eraba. So he does hera. Yeah. So therefore, right. So he comes here and it says, Bet Shammai omrim pesala min kiuna. Bet Shammai says now she becomes pasul from the kiuna because she's a zuna, and once she's a zuna, she's not allowed to get married to kohen. Why? Because the hara'ah is considered like mamash biyah, and therefore, since the biyat katan is considered biyah, so therefore it's considered that the child, right, had relations with his mother. Now if the child has relations, so now she's psula min kiuna. No, אבל מסוללת מחככת, ואז הערה בה. הערה בה is הרע. הרע זאת אומרת שנכנס העבר.
אוקיי.
הרע, אבל בהתחלה. זאת אומרת, לא עד הסוף, right? So, but הכוונה, אבל זה הרע. So, Bet Hillel says, no, she's going to be kosher. Why? Because it's a katan, and a katan, the biyah is not a biyah. So, Amar Reb Chia bered Rabba bar Nachman yam Reb Chasta, says Reb Chia the son of Rabba bar Nachman in the name of Chasta, ve'amli line, some people say Amar Reb Chasta Amar Zide, says Reb Chasta in the name of Zide, hakol modim beben teisha shanim v'yom echad shebiyato biyah. Everybody's going to be modeh that you have a teisha shanim v'yom echad, the biyah is going to be a biyah. Pachot miben shmone shem biyato biyah, but less than ben shmone, right? Biyato is not going to be biyah. Lo nechleku ela beben shmone. But he says the machloket is only going to be with an 8-year-old. The Bet Shammai holds, Kamrinan midorot harishonim. We learn from the midorot harishonim that even at the age of 8 they were able to have children, right? He says, we don't learn from the dorot harishonim. So says the Gemara, how do you know the bemet dorot harishonim, right? Molid. How do you know that? You understand? He says, right? So he says like this: dorot harishonim min alan dolid. So he says, if it's going to be because it's written, Halozot bat Sheva bat Eliam eshet Uriah Chiti. So he says, it says that Bat Sheva was the daughter of Eliam. Uchtiv, and it's written, Eliam was ben Achitofel Agiloni. So it comes out that Bat Sheva was the daughter of Eliam, which is the nechdato of Achitofel. Right? Now he says, Uchtiv, and it's written, Vayishlach biad Natan aviv vayikrat shemo Yedidia, pa'avur, that Hashem loved him. Uchtiv, vayhilish Natan yam v'yigozelu Shalom. So the story of Avshalom was when Shlomo was ben Shnatayim. Now it says Uchtiv, and it's written Avshalom barach v'yelech Geshur v'yisham shalosh shanim. He was 3 years there, right? Which means that now he's 5 years old. Uchtiv, and it's written Vayeshav Avshalom b'Yerushalayim shnatayim yamim u'pnei hamelech lo ra'ah. He didn't see the king, so it comes out now that it's 7 years old. Okay, basically we're trying to make a calculation, right? So we had already that when Avshalom comes, Shlomo was 2 years old. Then he was 3 years old, right? That he ran away, and then it was another 2 years old that he was in Yerushalayim and he didn't see the face of the king. So now Shlomo is 7 years old. And it's written, "Vayhi miketz 40 shana." It was the end of 40 years. Vayomer Avshalom el Melech elchana v'shalem en indri v'shen. I'm going to go to Hebron. וכתיב ונצותם, ואחיתופל ראה כי לא נעשתה עצתו ויחבו שחמונו ויקום וילך לביתו, ויצא בביתו יחנק. And then he went and he killed himself, the אחיתופל. וכתיב ונצותם, אנשי דמים ומרמה לא יחצו ימיהם. ותניא, what does that mean? כל שנותיו של דואג, אינן אלא 34, של אחיתופל, 33. Meaning, if it says in the pasuk, אנשי דמים ומרמה לא יחצו ימיהם. לא יחצו מהם means that they only live half their life. Now, if Yemesh Notenu Vayim Shivim Shana, so half the life is going to be 35. So it comes out that Doega Domi, he lived until 34. And Achitofel only lived until 33. So says the Gemara, so 1 second. Kama Havyalu. So then 1 second. How old was Achitofel when he died? Tlatinutit, Utlat. 33. Dal Sheva Dave Shlomo. You have 7 years of Shlomo Melech. Correct? 7 years of Shlomo Melech. Pashlu Esrim Veshit. Now you have only 26 years left. Dal tarte shned letlata ibure. You have to take also 2 years for the 3 pregnancies. So he comes and he says, right? For 3 pregnancies, you have to take out 2.5 years. So now so it comes out that each one gave birth at the age of 8 years old. Everyone understood the count? One more time. Achitofel was 8 years old, right? Shmona shanim u'shmona chodashim when Eliam was born. Eliam was 8 years old and 8 chodashim when Batsheva was born. And that time Achitofel was already 17 years old and 4 months. And then Batsheva yeldat Shlomo also at 8 years old and 8 months. And then Achitofel, right, was 26 years old. Yeah? So he comes and he says, everyone understood what happened. One more time. The pasuk says that Batsheva came from Achitofel. Batsheva was the daughter of Eliam, right? And Eliam was the son of Achitofel. Now, if Achitofel lived until 33, and he has a son called Eliam, and he has a daughter called Batsheva, and she has a son called Shlomo, if Shlomo's already 7 years old, right? And Achitofel died at 33, how do you do the count? So the Gemara says that each one of them gave birth at the age of 8. Meaning Achitofel gave birth at the age of 8 to Eliam, and Eliam gave birth at the age of 8 to Batsheva, and Batsheva gave birth at the age of 8, again 8 in a few months each one, to Shlomo. Everyone understood the count, yeah? Yeah. So fine. So says the Gemara, Mimai dilma tarvayu betesha olid, right? Ubatsheva olida beshit. Maybe the other way around. Maybe each one gave birth at the age of 9, and Batsheva was 6. Meaning, why did I do 8.5, 8.5, 8.5, right? In order to get to the 26 and everything. Why don't I just do that? It was really meant 9, 9, and 6. because she's a girl.
Mm.
Right? Mishum deitita badia, because it's normal that a girl is much healthier and much stronger, right, than a boy at the beginning. Teida dahava levlad miikara, because Batsheva already had another child even before Shlomo Melech. Right? So therefore, you already had a child beforehand, because it says that the child, David, v'yanash, and then it was Vayibi Mashiv, Yom Tolel, on the seventh day, that's when he died. And then it says, V'yinachem David Batsheva Yishto, Yavo Elav, Yishkav Ima, Telem V'tikat Shemo Shlomo. Then he had another child with her, and then he had Shlomo. So it means Shlomo was the second child. That means either way, he already had a child beforehand.
Yeah, probably she was 6.
So says the Gemara, you're right. So says the Gemara, right? Now that we pushed off the first one, the Gemara is going to bring another proof now. Ela mehacha, there's another pasuk. Ele toledot, because basically we just pushed it off that maybe be'emet they only give birth at 9, not at 8. So says the Gemara, Ela mehacha. Let's see this one now. Ele toledot terach holidit Avram et Nachor v'Taran. Avram was gadol ben Nachor shana. It says here Avraham Avinu was older than Nachor 1 year older than him. Nachor was older than Haran 1 year also. And the Imsa Avraham Gadol Mishte Shanim Haran. So he's 2 years older than Haran. Uchtiv in Etzvetin. Veikach Avraham Nachol Laim Nashim. He took wives. Right? Shemesh et Avraham Tzalem Shemesh et Nochah. So he says, 1 second. Haran was the father of Yitzchak, of Yiska. Ve'amar Yitzchak, Iska is Sarah. So why is it called Iska? Shetzachah Baruch HaKodesh. Ve'ainu Dichtiv, and that's what it says. Kol asher tomar Sarah, v'shema v'kula. You have to pay attention to her. Tavar Acher, another explanation. Why would she call Iska? Shakol Sachim Yofia. Everyone was looking at her because she was very, very beautiful. Uchtiv, and it says, Ve'ipol Avraham apanav Yitzchak, v'yomer blibo. Kama kashish Avraham misara. So how much was Avraham older than Sarah? Eser shenim, 10 years old. The kashish me'avua, and he was older than the father, right? Tartin shenim, 2 years
So
old.
what time?
So yishtakach yolda Haran Sarah betam neolida. So it comes out that when Haran came and he had Sarah, he was 8 years old. Everyone understood how he got to 8? One more time, because if you're going to tell me now the wife of Haran, right, was 7 years old, so it comes out Dorot Rishonim. They actually used to have children even before 8 years old. So that's the pshat of Dorot Rishonim. Meaning in Dorot Rishonim, they used to have the children much earlier. Okay. Oh wow! It says over here, the Midrash actually says it, that Haran had Milka at the age of 6 and Sarah at the age of 7. So mamash, we're talking about mamash. These are the ages of Dorot Rishonim, as we're saying here. You understand? So therefore, if it's going to be that he's 10 years older, right, than Sarah, and he's going to be 2 years older than Haran, so it comes out that he was 8 years old. Okay? So says the Gemara, Mimai. How do you know this? Dilma Avraham zut de'achu ahava. Maybe Be'emet Avraham was the youngster. Shederech chokhmatan kachashiv le. And maybe it's only going according to the chokhmah, not according to the age. Right? So he comes and he says like this. He says, right? He says like this. So he says like this. He says, right? Teida, you should know. The kachashiv leukra, because the pasuk says derech chokhmatan dichtiv vahi ben Noach ben 500 shana vayolon Hashem et Cham et Yafet sheshem gadol mecham shana Cham gadol miyafet shana nimsa sheshem gadol miyafet shtei shanim, the same thing. Shem Cham Yafet, again 1 year is each one. Uchtiv in etzvet v'Noach ben 600 shana v'bulul yalmayim alaretz ve'eleto lo Shem ben 100 shana v'yolod pachshad shnat ha'mechla mebul ben 100 shana ben 113 shnina. He says it's not 100 years old, it's 102. Ela derech chokhmatan kachashiv leu. Again, they were going according to derech chokhmatan. Hachanami, what does that mean? That means when the pasuk comes and it said according to chokhmatam, not according to the leidatam, because he was actually be'emet the katan. So why did it say that he's going to be 102? Why is it starting with Shem? So it says Hachanami derech chokhmatan kachashiv. So maybe it's going to, meaning really be'emet Avraham Avinu be'emet was a katan. So if Avraham Avinu was a katan, you're not going to say that it was 8 years old. Maybe be'emet it could have been 10, maybe it could have been 12. I don't know, but it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't 8 years old, right? You understood the reason why it was 8 years old. One more time. If Avraham Avinu, it says that he was 100 years old when he had Yitzchak, and Sarah was how old? 90. Right? That means he's 10 years older. And he's already 2 years older than his younger brother Haran.
Right.
So that means Haran was 8 years old when he had Sarah.
Right.
And then he comes and he got married to her, right? And then, so it doesn't make sense. What's going on?
11 years.
Yeah. So he comes and he says, Teida the Kachash. So he says, we go after Chokhmah. So Amar Rav Kana comes and he says, Amnita lishmata kamed Rav Zim ben Daf. We said this in front of Rav Zim ben Daf. Amar, and he told us, Atu me'acha matnitu, we're coming from over there. Marim me'acha matnitelu, ulshem yulad gam hu aviyah kol bnei v'rachiach v'et hagadol, yefet hagadol shebechavaya. He says there, it says mefurash, that Yefet was a gadol, right? So therefore, the fact that it says Yefet was a gadol, right? So therefore, he comes and he says, right? So therefore, from there, we're actually seeing what's going on. So says the Gemara, Ela, but rather Minalan. How do we know that what that Dorot shouldn't used to give birth at the age of 8 because we just pushed it off now? So says the Gemara, because if we just pushed off that maybe Be'emet Avraham Avinu was Be'emet not like that. So maybe Be'emet and Dorot Yishonim, right, it was not like that, which is very interesting because Lemaskana, if we pushed it off, I don't know if that's Be'emet anymore. Meaning because we pushed it off that maybe Be'emet it's not Nachon. But if we know that Be'emet Avraham Avinu was older, so it comes out the Be'emet he gave birth at the age of 8, which is a Pelegador. You know, when was the last time you knew that? Haran gave birth at the age of 8. Yeah? Or again, it's a midrash. The midrash says 7 and then 8 or whatever. 6 and 7. Fine. So it says over here, Ela minalan, mehacha from here. It says Ubtzalel ben Uri ben Chur lemate Yuda. I think it could be this week's parasha, if not the next week. We're talking about the Mishkan and all these things. So Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur lemate Yuda comes, right? No, this is probably later, much later on. No, this is later on, but it's Perek Lamed Chet, so it's towards the end of Shemot, right? So it says over here, right? He did everything. So he says, how old was Betzalel when he made the Mishkan? He was Bar Tleisar. He was 13 years old. Right? So he says, V'tanaya, we learned to write that. Shana Rishona asa Moshe Mishkan. Sheniya hekim Mishkan v'shalach meraglim. Uchtiv v'netzvetem merabim shana anochi b'shloach Moshe Eved Hashem. Right? Ve'ata hine anochi hayom ben 85 shana. Kama havyalu. So how much is it going to be then? So he says, 40 years. Dalar Beis Adav Betzalel. So you have to take off 14 years, right? That Betzalel was alive. Pashlu Veshit. So now you're going to have 26 years. Because that was the Gil of Kalev when Betzalel was born. So it comes out that for 26 years, Kalev was born to 3 generations. You have Chur, Uri, and Betzalel. Right? Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur. So it's 3 generations. Dal Tarte Shane Ditlata Ibur. You have to take away 2 years for the 3 different Harayonot. Right? Because basically every single hirayon minimum is going to be 3 years. Right? So he says, again, you're going to have, right? And this one, we don't push it off. We finish like this. So Be'emet, right? It could be that H1 was at the age of 8 when they had the children. So something incredible. 8.
The one